Tally-ho, Joolz Guides here, in which I wander around London telling you amazing facts. And today we are in Archway. Hello, sir. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you like these videos, by the way, because it really helps. We've been here before. We did one of my first ever videos was about the Whittington stone here. But it was only one of my 2-minute videos, so we thought we're doing the whole of Archway today. But yes, the Whittington stone, I mean, this particular stone has been here since around 1821. But everything around here is named after Dick Whittington, because he came to London in the 14th century, where he thought that the streets were paved with gold. And in the pantomime, he has a cat that helps him make a fortune by chasing rats off ships or something. What happened was he came to London to do some work in a kitchen where he was very badly treated. And so he decided to turn around and head back up to Gloucestershire or wherever it was he was from. And he got as far as Highgate Hill before he heard what he perceived to be the Bow Bell making this sound that sounded a bit like, "Turn again, Whittington, thrice Lord Mayor of London." I don't know how a bell makes that sound. But anyway, he did decide to turn around right here, and he went back, and he did indeed become thrice Lord Mayor of London. Actually, he became 4 times Lord Mayor of London, and he was a very good mayor as well. He used to fine breweries for serving bad beer. He made a lot of money out of selling cloth, in reality. He was a mercer, and he lent a lot of money to various kings. Oh yeah, Richard II, Henry IV, and Henry V, it says there. And he lent money to all of them. And there's a lot of charities today, actually, which still benefit from his generosity. There has been a stone on this hill since the middle of the 1700s. The cat was added in the 1960s. But whether you could actually hear the Bow Bell from here is debatable. Everything around here is named after Whittington. There's a Whittington Stone pub, you've got Whittington Hospital over there. It's a bit like in Baker Street where everything's named after Sherlock Holmes.
Goodbye, farewell to London town. These streets weren't paved with gold. But I am sad to leave you because I've forgotten far too old. So this will probably be the last.
MacDonald Road, Julian MacDonald, McDonald's. Julian MacDonald in MacDonald Road next to McDonald's. This is Navigator Square, presumably named after the navvies who built canals and the railways, and a lot of Irish people were attracted to this neighbourhood back in the 19th century. A lot of the pubs were Irish. I seem to remember when I was younger, this pub was an Irish pub, the Archway Tavern. It was actually built in 1886. You might recognise it from the cover of the Kinks album, Muswell Hillbillies. They're sitting inside this pub in that. They've
pedestrianised it,
yeah, they pedestrianised around here. There used to be a gyratory going around here, like in the 1960s. Even Archway Tower has improved. The first place I ever signed on, by the way. I had to sign on after I left university. I signed on in there. But even that has improved. So this Archway station used to be one of those lovely old Leslie Green stations. You know, the ones with all the red green tiles or whatever. Yeah, from about 1907. But it was actually called Highgate Station then, because the Hampstead and Euston Railway, or whatever it was, it's what is now the Northern Line, only used to come up as far as here. But when they extended it, they took it all the way up to Highgate. And you know there's that overground station up in Highgate, which is now abandoned. That overground was already called Highgate, so they decided to change that one to Highgate, and they called this Archway Highgate, and then they called it Highgate Archway. And I think eventually in the 60s they decided, okay, let's just call it Archway Station. Now look, here's a nice ghost sign for you, Simon. Look, there says Subway sign over there.
Yes, I see it.
There used to be a subway that went underneath here. And I should say hello to the people who work in the library down there, because it is a very nice library and the people are excellent. So do go and say hello. But they're all very nice people.
'Cause I don't want to sing about another broken heart.
Amongst all the crazy buildings and everything, they do get some nice little spots. I mean, I quite like that in a way. Like that was built in 1933. The Methodist Church, one of the main contributors to this Methodist church was J. Arthur Rank, the film distributor. You know when you see at the beginning of those old films like King Kong or whatever, there's a man with a big gong and he's going dong and it says a J. Arthur Rank production or whatever. He was a Methodist. He contributed to that. J. Arthur, that's a rhyming slang, isn't it? Look, you see, they've got these wonderful aerial views of Archway and what it used to look like. So it's such an amazing big space as well. They've got a whole huge space in there. I never really considered doing Archway as a location because people just regard it as a sort of in-between place. It's between Highgate and Finsbury Park and Crouch End and Holloway, but actually, as you will discover, it's quite interesting.
Well, I think these Art Deco public toilets are quite interesting.
They are,
which are no longer open. It
that
definitely
obviously was. You're right. That was a toilet, wasn't it, Simon? Look at that. That's a pity. That would be quite handy.
Well, you can see one of them is broken. I can see a toilet. I can see a toilet.
Oh yeah, how funny. You'd have to have pretty good aim though to get it in from here. I mean, it's like straight down there. Sorry, officer, I'm just...
I'm surprised I haven't turned this one into a bar or, like they do these days.
This is Junction Road that leads down to Tufnell Park, but we're going down Holloway Road, or up Holloway Road. But isn't that co-op over there? That's where, do you remember was it called Quasar? The game where you had like guns and you had to shoot each other. I'm sure they had a thing up there. And also, oh no, look, you see the area has changed so much. It's such a pity. They used to be the snooker hall. That's where I went to play snooker. Always came out smelling of fried eggs. I don't know why. And on this corner here, a shop there on the corner, that used to be Pure Grooves. Pure Grooves was like the epicenter of the UK garage scene. They set up in 1989 on a market stall in Camden. Mike Skinner from the Streets, he submitted his demo here. There's something very interesting across here. Watch yourself, Simon. Here we go. Look. Look in this alleyway. You've got these original old tram tracks. Look at these.
Oh yeah, well spotted.
I guess they went off to Finsbury Park or whatever, or Holloway. I mean, there used to be trams. The trams would stop here outside Archway Tavern, and the first ever cable tramway car in Europe was the one that carried you from Archway Tavern up Highgate Hill. It's like what they have in San Francisco. They had them in San Francisco first. So from about 1884 to 1909, they had these, it was called a cable grip technique. They gripped it in this central gullyway between the tracks, and it would pull it all the way up the hill. But in 1892, they had this massive accident. I think the cable snapped, and it came hurtling down the hill and led to the demise of this system. I mean, it's nice to have a first in Europe, though. Even though they had them in San Francisco first. Looks another sad sight. Is that a closed down pub over there, Simon? The Mother Red Cap? Like another Irish pub. There's a lot of Irish pubs around here, as I mentioned. But a lot of them are sadly closed. One of those annoying days where I can't quite get nice shots. At least I'm not boiling hot for a change. And a quick shout out to my tailor, Georgie, who of Skyline, who made me this beautiful suit. I'm not wearing the jacket today because I'm rather warm, but you saw her in my Walthamstow video, actually. I think it's rather good, don't you? Do you think I look smart, Simon?
You do, it looks great.
This building here on Elthorpe Road, it's now called Laszlo, but used to be Batavia Mills, which was owned by Betts and Company. And this took me ages to figure out who this was, because I was looking at this, trying to figure out, but I think it's B, is it? And, is that an and sign?
Yeah, oh yeah,
like
yeah,
and,
yeah.
And then there's a co, where's the C? Yeah, there's a C, like a curly C. Betts and Co, Betts and Company. They made tinfoil, funny packaging stuff, but they were the second biggest employer in the area. After the hospital, which had loads of employees, this had 900 employees, so this would have been quite a major central hub of the
So what,
Archway.
kitchen foil they made?
Not kitchen foil, something to do with packaging, for packaging tea and chocolates.
Yeah, the kind of thing you peel off from the plastic to get to the stuff that's
exactly,
fresh
or
inside.
like in Beverly Hills Cop, when he's examining the crates and he pulls that ring around that tin foil kind of cover to inspect the coffee granules.
Exactly.
I don't know why I thought of Beverly Hills Cop there, but
There's a load of cool cats that play around the town. If only I was Lord Mayor of these dirty streets I found.
this is St John's Church. It was designed by Sir Charles Barry. He's the same guy who did the Houses of Parliament. Sometime in the 1820s, there was this parliamentary act to build new churches around the 1820s because areas like Archway were developing. So they needed things like churches. But Pevner, who is this like architectural critic, he described it as an uninspired perpendicular, in no way superior to the other common run of commissioned churches, which is what these were called. But apparently that is particularly unremarkable. Looks all right to me. It's even got a little bird in the window there, look. And it's right next to what used to be a school. It's now the Arch Hotel. But I think it was built around the same time. Look, it says St. John's National Schools. These national schools, they were created by the National Society for the Promotion of Religious Education to encourage religious teachings, right at the corner of Pemberton Gardens. Hello to my friend Joe Pemberton, if you're watching. You may remember from my sandwich video, best Christmas sandwich.
I love the old bins as well. You know, those
Yeah, old
big,
style
massive
bins.
black wheelie bins or anything.
But all I see is rats, and I am thinking I should leave. Should I take a boat and sing about a broken heart?
Hello.
This is the Toy Project shop. We're a charity. We have the shop here, we have a playroom where children come and do activities, and we have a gallery, but we also have a concession in Selfridges. So families will donate their toys here. All the toys that are brought in here are resold. The money that we make funds projects to support children across London and actually the world.
Does it have to be of a certain quality or anything like that?
As long as it can be played with again,
Yeah.
we take it. And then some of it will go out to vulnerable children and families, so we get lots of referrals from schools, hospitals, hospices, but then the rest of it is in the shop, up for sale. We really encourage children to buy second-hand rather than new, reducing landfill.
I think you've got an amazing variety in here. And some of the stuff, look up there, look. Fisher Price, there's some vintage. These are quite vintage, aren't they?
They're from the 70s, aren't they?
Is that like the guy from the Toy Story ones?
You get a whole bucket of them, the Toy Story ones.
Rupert the Bear. Where's the Lego at?
You're coming to my domain. This is the Lego window. This
Okay,
is where it all
so,
lives.
but with Lego, does it have to be one of these spaceships or something?
We get boxes in like this, just full of mixed bricks all the time.
Yeah.
Constantly, and my job is essentially we make bags like that from them. Essentially, yes.
Look at, you see, that was
So
more
that's
fun.
the
That's
mixed Lego like this, or if it's a set and I can build it, I will build it. Or I will have my O50s group or my adult group or my kids groups in the week help me build things.
I had a dream about Harrison Ford last night. It was really weird. I was in a film with him. When I worked in Hamleys, I got a Harrison Ford because he came into the toy shop I worked in, and he signed a Star Wars Han Solo figure, and I stupidly gave it to my friend Sebastian. So annoyed. I don't know why, because he was a big Star Wars fan. So I just gave it to him. I ran after Harrison Ford. I said, would you mind signing this?
We always make sure that you are getting it for less than you would get it. So, you know, we want it to be able to be that kids can come in with £2, £3 and actually get something.
You see, I know what to get you for Christmas.
Fried eggs, yes! See, look, fried eggs.
What's so special about here is that the children can come in and they can play, and it's not all kind of packaged. And my son, for example, can come in here for 2 hours and he'll play. And actually that's great for shopping, because then normally he's kind of got a lot of the play out, and then he'll just choose the one thing he actually likes, and we're going to take something home that he is actually going to play. And then we donate it back, and then we buy something else.
Thanks, Jess.
Thank you so much. See you again.
See you, bye. Bye.
Bye.
I thought to make my living in a cold and dark archway, but all the men I see here are getting old and grey, with all the silks and fabrics.
It's a bit slippery up here, but I'll tell you what, not many people know about this
yes,
place
it's
really,
quite
but
a-
isn't
quite
it
a view.
terrific? You get a great view of London from here. It's called Dartmouth Park. I actually have a video called Dartmouth Park, but I don't come to Dartmouth Park in it. It's mostly about Tufnell Park. Tremendous, isn't it? It's a rather odd place. Probably wondering what's going on over here. It's all fenced off, but this is a reservoir. In 1855, this was a part of the Maiden Lane Reservoir, it was called back then, I think. And it's connected to that pumping station, which we saw in my Stoke Newington video. It looks like a big castle, part of the new river. Nice place to take your dog for a walk, Simon.
Yeah, it is.
You think?
Yeah.
Just coming up Dartmouth Park Hill here. Nice old King George V postbox there. It's in decent nick, GR, George V. And that's just beside, look at that thing there. Look, that's some sort of boundary marker. St Pancras Parish. And they're just opposite. This is Whittington Estate. I think they're all part of the whole development known as Highgate New Town. It was designed by Peter Tabori, who was a Hungarian. And after he worked for Erno Goldfinger, who's the guy who did the Trellick Tower, he got a job with Camden. Because you're probably thinking that that looks a little bit like that one that we went to in South Hampstead. Do you remember? For Alexandra Road Estate.
Yeah.
It's quite similar in design. But that one was Neve Brown. And I think that Neve Brown was kind of almost a co-worker with him. He was kind of his protege. That's why you might describe them as parallel interpretations, not copying. I always thought the Whittington Hospital was a bit horrible looking, but actually if you go around the back of it, they've got these beautiful buildings. I mean, this is from 1848. It started up as the smallpox and vaccination hospital, which they've still got there, look. But then they added these other bits later on around here, like, come over here, Simon. Amazing ironwork. Look at these iron walkways and stuff that they've got. It used to be the female receiving ward, which in those days meant like a triage place for where people used to go, especially if they were suspected of being mentally ill. That one across the road on the other side of Highgate Hill there, the Academy, that used to be St Mary's Hospital. All these hospitals around here, eventually they all merged together. There are lots of different ones. 1880, does it say up there? So it's built in 1880. And the other thing up there, which is quite confusing to me, is it's something that says LSB, which I think is London Schools Board. But I don't think it was anything to do with the London Schools Board, but anyway, maybe someone can enlighten me, but I don't know what that stood for then otherwise. These days it's the Academy, but let's head up the hill.
With all the silks and fabrics and your threads so fine, I can easily ring the bells of lemons.
Look at this, I've just scored points. It's a hidden drinking fountain. Wait a minute. Hope it's not a hidden toilet for most people. Drinking Fountain and Cattle Trough Association. That's really hidden there, isn't it? Must have been there since 1800s. Strictly speaking, I suppose we're in Highgate now, really, rather than Archway, but I missed this out in my Highgate video. This is Lauderdale House, which was built in 1582 or so for Richard Martin, who was the Master of the Royal Mint. And eventually it came into the hands of John Maitland, who was the Earl of Lauderdale, which is where it gets its name, Lauderdale House. I came here to watch an excellent Noel Coward play once, just out, they did it outside. It was terrific, actually. But there's lots of stories about how King Charles II gave titles to his bastard sons. He had a lot of bastard sons. Nell Gwyn, who was his favourite mistress, they say that it was here that she was threatening to throw their bastard son over the balcony if he didn't give him a title. So she was standing there with the baby, about to throw the child over the balcony, when King Charles II shouted, "God save the Earl of Burford!" Later on it became boarding school. After that it came into the hands of the Liberal MP, Sir Sidney Waterlow, after whom the park is named. This is Waterlow Park, beautiful park. You've got a Highgate Cemetery on the other side there. But then he said, I'm going to donate this for the usage of Londoners. A rather pleasant place just to sit and contemplate life.
Meow, 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 meow. The rats will leave somehow.
Just back on Highgate Hill here, a little further up from Lauderdale House, I should point out Channing School. They were the local girls' school. I went to a boys' school, which is a bit further up, but they used to bring people from the girls' school when we needed some girls for the school play, for example, if we had a play which required women in it. And we did The Merchant of Venice, and I played Lancelot's Gobbo. They would also come for our general studies lectures, which were lectures done by quite famous people, actually. I remember once when Glenda Jackson came to do a lecture, and I famously, because I was that stupid kid who always wanted to say something silly, and they put my hand up and I said, "Oh, but you're an actor, aren't you? To be a politician, don't you have to like read loads of books and stuff?" She, understandably, gave me rather short shrift. Everyone thought I was an idiot, and I was. But anyway, over here, this is now the Ghanaian High Commission, but it's known as Cromwell House. It was built in 1638, amazingly. There's no real evidence that Oliver Cromwell had any particular connection with it. Later on, it passed into the hands of Alvaro Mendes da Costa, who was the doctor of King Charles II. He was also the first Jewish person to own property in London since the Jews were expelled from London under King Edward I in like the 1200s, 1290 or so. It was Oliver Cromwell passed a decree inviting Jewish people to come back to London. But yeah, they had been banished since the 13th century.
Meow, 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 meow. I'll be the mayor of London anyway, anyhow.
This was, I suppose, one of the routes into London. Many people would enter London this way. James Boswell, the famous, was he the biographer of Dr. Samuel Johnson? As he reached Highgate Hill and he saw London stretched out before him, he said, "I was all life and joy. I gave 3 huzzas and I went briskly on." Now these are a bit awkwardly placed here. Parish boundary markers. It says St Pancras Parish 1794, and this one is very much worn out. So that's St Mary Islington, Hornsey. So we're on the boundary of the parishes, which are important in those days, administrative. They don't really matter so much these days. They've been replaced by London Borough Councils, who are a bit like London Borough Councils in the old days. My friend used to live in that church. It's now been converted into flats. And it's just opposite Holy Joe's. It's actually St Joseph's Church, Catholic church, and it was named Holy Joe's, colloquially, by boys at my school. The Catholic boys would come here on Thursdays for a service. You see the green dome up there. It's kind of quite a landmark. You can see it from quite a few places in London, that. I think you can see it from Hampstead Heath and from down the bottom of the hill there. Another person connected with Highgate Hill is William Powell, a Treasury clerk. He lived down in Sloane Square, or Sloane Street, in the 18th century, and he won £500 in a lottery. But every day he would walk from his house in Sloane Street to the foot of Highgate Hill, and then he'd stop for a moment, catch breath, and then he'd sprint to the top of Highgate Hill every single day. Apparently, when they asked him why he did this, he said, "Because if I cease to do it, the world will stop." Anyway, we're walking along Hornsey Lane up there, and I'm going to see you by Suicide Bridge in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. It's not really called Suicide Bridge. This is actually the Archway Bridge that goes over Archway Road. It was around 1810, they had this idea of digging a tunnel, because this was a massive hill here, and they wanted to put this to connect Upper Holloway, which is near sort of Archway Station where we were before, with Great North Road all the way up there. But then that tunnel collapsed and they gave up. So instead they created this cutting. They cut through the hill and they put a bridge, which originally was a stone arch by John Nash. And that lasted until about 1897, when more and more traffic started coming up here, and they replaced it with this metal bridge. That leads all the way up to Highgate Station, up that direction. They've got the same lampposts there as they do down by the river. You see?
By the Thames, yeah.
Yeah, by the Thames, the same ones.
Yeah.
There used to be a house behind here between about 1810 and 1910. Big, lovely house called Whitehall House. But then they knocked it down, and now it's been replaced by all these buildings here, like either side of Fitzwarren Gardens. Fitzwarren, by the way, is the maiden name of the wife of Richard Whittington, Dick Whittington, the Lord Mayor of London. Anyway, I'm only talking about this because I just want to say hello to my friend's dad and mum who used to live around here. I think they're my biggest fans. And actually the oldest house along Hornsey Lane, I think, is this one here. That dates from around 1827, number 98 that is. And come, for heaven's sake, let us walk down Whitehall Park, leading to Cressida Road. And in fact, all the roads around this little section are named after Shakespeare characters. So there's a Prospero Road from The Tempest, Cressida from Troilus and Cressida, Miranda, I think she's from The Tempest as well. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of them. And they've got this lovely stink pipe in here. This must lead down to the sewer to let the smells out, but it's rather short for a stink pipe, isn't it? Sorry I keep going on about the blooming things, but that's a very nice one, but very short. All these roads are rather wonderful. And the reason why they named them after Shakespeare characters was kind of like a marketing ploy, I suppose. It was to make them sound very cultural, and it's also a trend in the 19th century. Look, that's a kind of old sign there, Cheverton Road. N, because the one over there says Cheverton Road N19, so that's how they used to do them back before 1917, before they introduced the new numerical subdivisions in the postcode, which I have said a million times. I know you're bored of it, Simon, but some people haven't seen all my videos. What's interesting, you see, if you carry on down here, Cressida Road, it kinks to the right here, and it goes around this park. It's called Hillside Park here, and that's because down at the bottom here, it's rather a nice park now here, look. But just on the left, there used to be a huge workhouse, the Islington workhouse, down there in the 19th century. So they had to go around it because this was part of the grounds.
So I went a-sailing across the deep blue sea, and all the blooming limeys were lined up next
It's incredible, isn't it? You see this bit here, this brick bit on the corner, this was a tiny part of the workhouse. That's just like a gate. Like there was another matching part like that on the other side there, and then the main bit was in the middle, this massive workhouse which sheltered over 1,000 paupers. It was reckoned one of the largest and finest in the kingdom. I mean, around 1870, because high ground was healthy ground, Highgate attracted those sorts of institutions. That's why you get things like hospitals, asylums and workhouses. It got demolished in 1972. I mean, for a while it was an old people's home. But they also had an orphanage, which was just a little bit further around there. And King Edward VII and Princess Alexandra had to visit one day, and they actually came to visit because they were on their way to the orphanage, but there was this massive rainstorm and they had to take shelter inside the workhouse. It's rather lovely because these kids presented Princess Alexandra with a vase inscribed. It says, "To Her Royal Highness, the Princess of Wales, from the 1,369 paupers and school children in Islington Workhouse, 1879. Paid for by the paupers." And all that remains of it now is this brick building.
And with the scurvy on their lips, they sing a sweet chanty. Turn again, Dick Whittington, and then you're broken.
In the corner of Lysander Grove, I think Lysander is also from a Shakespeare play. This is where I was talking about the big orphanage that they had around the corner. It originated here in 1864. There was a sign over the door. It used to say, "Take this child and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages," which I think is from the Bible or something. I think it's from Exodus.
I said goodbye to London town in disgust and spurn, but now I'm back because these chimes rang out and said to turn, and all the rats have been caught, and I'm now in higher.
I wanted to talk about this building, Portley House here. There's actually one of these Mercer's maidens above the door there, above Portley House. It's an emblem of the Worshipful Company of Mercers. And the reason why there's the Mercer's maid above there is because the Miranda estate over there used to be these almshouses for single women over 55, provided for by the Mercers, Worshipful Company of Mercers, cloth makers, of which Richard Whittington was one. That's why Portley Street over there is named after the town in Gloucestershire where he's from, or somewhere near there. But there's a picture in the Tate Gallery by James Pollard, dating from around 1836, in which you could see this whole area stretching up. It's called the Tally-Ho, rather pleasingly. I mean, they had to knock it down after they made a decision to widen Archway Road. But it existed there from about 1824 until 1967, and you can actually still see a photo of it inside the Methodist Church earlier on. One of those pictures on the wall is an aerial shot, and you can just catch a glimpse of these old almshouses which were there. But I do love this building, the Holborn Union building, that is, used to be a hospital. It dates from 1879. But it's been abandoned for quite some time.
It is amazing, isn't it? I mean, look at the beauty, the craftsmanship of the brickwork and the woodwork on the doors and the windows. And yet it's just abandoned. I guess it costs a fortune to run, but I mean, even the guttering's lovely, isn't it?
I think, in fact, it was where my friend studied nursing. It was part of the Middlesex University for a while. This location here is where there used to be a toll gate. You actually had to stop and pay a toll to come along here, but when the road first opened up, it was still a bit too muddy, and a lot of people preferred to go up Highgate Hill anyway because there were more pubs in Highgate. It was less muddy, and it wasn't until about 1829 people started using this a lot more. Charles Dickens describes it in Our Mutual Friend. He says, a tract of suburban Sahara where tiles and bricks were burnt, bones were boiled, carpets were beat, rubbish was shot, dogs were fought, and dust was heaped by contractors.
Meow, 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 meow. The rats will leave.
I thought that all minicab firms had gone out of business, but they haven't. Some still exist. I was quite annoyed because I've included in my rather splendid London pub walks book, which I can highly recommend to people, which is available. I mentioned one in Kentish Town, which is like the minicabs firm called BG Cars, and it's closed down. I've actually got a picture of it in my book, and then as soon as I published the book, the blooming place is closed down. But at least Whittington cars are still operating, because, you know, since Uber and everything, you don't really get them anymore. They're dying out, dying breed.
Meow, meow. I'll be the mayor of London anyway, anyhow.
Wonderful. Cheers, Simon. Cheers, everybody. Unbelievably, we've walked around the whole of Archway and all the pubs were closed. They don't open till about 3 or 4 o'clock. So we've wandered down here to the Landseer, which is excellent, by the way. So we're quite pleased about that. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you like the videos. And if you want to know more about me, just go over to my website, joolzguides.com, where you can buy my book. Don't forget to buy my book. It's Rather Splendid London Pub Walks. And there's lots of other videos on there, and you can even leave a donation and do all sorts of stuff. See you next time.
And all the rats have been caught, and I'm now in higher places, and I don't have to sing about another broken heart.